Hi, this is Bill Graham, president of the Rotary Dare to Be Great Global eClub. I apologize again for not having turned on the recording of the Zoom call early enough. As a result, we missed the first hour. Most of the content of that first hour can be seen in either going back to the 22nd of November or going to 6 December. The 6th December might be a little better in some ways because I did have power problems on the 22nd. At any rate, I hope you will find the second part of this meeting on the 29th to be of interest. Thank you. Am I still connected with you guys? Can you guys still hear me? Dennis, can you hear me?
Bill, we can hear you.
Okay.
On my part, it's been breaking a little bit, but even where there is gaps, I can still follow the sentence.
Okay. What are your thoughts about some of the capabilities that you saw?
My immediate thoughts, I tend to look at it from our vantage point, we're really being released to be creative, because I just need to know that somebody maybe 300 years ago in China must have thought about something like this. And I say, go and figure it out. And I can talk to different civilizations and different contexts. So I think for um, for the knowledge worker, this is creating increased productivity. And then putting on the heart of an executive, then this is also giving them a lot of a challenge because now you can see that the executive themselves may not need that many people below them. You're looking at companies becoming 5% of their size. The executive is increasingly more productive and a small team. And so then that now leaves the issue of the rest because you will find somebody with maybe 2 years of experience will have the same capability as somebody with 45 years of experience because you have the same tools. And then now the issue is, do you go with experience or do you go with a smaller pay grade? And what's the risks? It's going to create a lot of decision points. And of course, for me, I tend to think of it also from the humanistic side, because if you lay off people, then what? You're really getting very, very close to insecurity, especially in societies where there is no social safeguards, which is I think huge parts of the world.
Actually, a lot of the International Monetary Fund, the and other bodies, the World Economic Forum, the projections are that it's going to hit the developed economies first. It's going after the college graduate. It's going after the people who have invested to acquire knowledge that's now available to everybody for almost free. And the challenge, there's some folks who have said, okay, in fact, both of those two bodies I just mentioned have said, okay, the answer is we got to upskill and reskill everybody. But the thing about it is let's say accounting. So we find now an accountant because it just says, okay, hey AI, do this, do that, fix that, analyze this for me, do that for me. That now one accountant that can do all of that better than any of the other ones can now do the work of 10 accountants. So why do I have the other nine? So if I go and tell all the nine that are being displaced, go out there and learn to master AI better. Well, that just means one of them may learn to master AI better than the one who initially survived, and they replace them. It's not that it's going and saying, okay, we need to have 100 times as much accounting effort as before. And it doesn't only apply to say for the jobs that exist now, but one of the things we have to realize about AI versus humans, if we want to upskill humans and we've got to take 90% of the world population and upskill them, the effort to do that is 1 times as many humans that need to be updated. If we come up
Yeah.
and say, here's the update on AI, we only have to update one, and they all know. So,
And I don't think the model of upskilling can work anymore. I mean, I think it's too slow a process. I think
yes,
that is still holding us in the old thinking paradigm. I kind of feel that no, now we need to just throw out what we knew, throw out the old models of retraining, upgrading, and all this kind of thing, and just start thinking differently.
yes. That's exactly what
Mm.
the conclusion was. What I was just showing you here, with that, I'm going to go back and share that screen again. The real challenge is, until now, the world economy has been to reward efficiency. The person who figured out how to do something in half the speed, they got the business because they could do that, and so these. Um, it's basically efficiency against the employee. And it's not so much that AI or even the human that's using AI is going to cause the job loss. Take a look here at in China. Xiaomi is one of the biggest producers of cell phones in the world. They've recently opened a plant that creates a smartphone every 3 seconds. Every 3 seconds, and there's no humans working on the floor. It's totally a dark, lights out factory, fully automated. Now, what is happening here is that it's not so much the AI doing the things. What it is the AI enabling us to interpret what's happening around us, so that they then cause what the human would have done, the hard-coded automated tasks to be kicked off. In other words, if we think of self-driving car, not in maybe the very first time it was all hard-coded, but then after a while we said, okay, we put sensors on the car so we know what's happening in front, on the sides, everywhere related to the car. But we also put sensors on to tell us what the driver did in response to their seeing these things that are happening. And so we were able to have the AI evaluate, was the output of the driver, was it good or bad in a given situation, so that they were able to decide, okay, hey, this is the action that should be taken in a given situation. So the AI and the sensors determine the situation. What situation do we have? But that only initiates the actions that have been hard coded, based on the tracking what's effective and what's not effective. So it's the automation, the basic automation, that is going to replace most of the jobs. And that is something that's just been going on forever, that people are constantly looking, how do I do something and create a better product? How do I create a lower cost product through increased efficiencies? That is just that's just standard ongoing. So we tend to clump all of that and say it's AI. AI is doing it all. AI is enabling some of it, because we're now able to track and analyze so much more than we were able to do before, where it was dependent on having a live human observe the differences. But other than that, it's not so much AI. So this is why we're seeing a lot of criticism, where um, people are saying that, oh, companies are not getting the return that they hoped on AI, where they're doing things where with unstructured data and situations. So things like answering customer calls. that could be about anything and do it in any way. Some of those we've seen we get errors, and the people who are saying, "Oh, let's switch from the human to the AI," they're very uncomfortable with errors, with anything that goes wrong. This is why about a year and a half ago, maybe now, San Francisco went and forced some of the self-driving cars off the streets because there had been reports of accidents that were involving self-driving cars. So I forget uh, um, which of the car producers was affected by that, but they withdrew from San Francisco. Then there was a study that came out that showed that the accidents were 7 times more likely to have been caused by a human driver than by the self-driving car, and that accidents or harm to humans was 5 times more likely to be the result of an accident caused by a human than an accident caused by AI. And so as a result, they brought the self-driving cars back. And the U.S. is now expanding from, I think, 3 to 5 cities to something like 13 cities in the next year that will have robotaxis, self-driving taxis. And if we look at China, China is going full speed ahead. And China is has a policy where they are trying to automate the whole country for everything. Now, we have to realize China, due to their one child policy back a ways, they have um, their population is declining. The number of young people is very, very small. China might only have half the population it currently has in less than 100 years. So they don't have enough workers. So to be able to go and replace human workers with AI and automation is important for them. But you've got other countries like Pakistan where you have a huge youth population. So the idea here is to replace human workers with AI is going to be a big problem for Pakistan. But what makes it worse is if Pakistan tries to go and say, okay, we're gonna block, we're gonna put big tariffs on the goods coming in from China, that's going to result in Pakistanis not being able to afford the latest good stuff, if you would. So the attempts, any attempts by a company or a country to protect workers is most likely to lead to a decline in the living standard of that country. And this is a major problem. The other major problem is that um, that in the developed countries, because until now the economies are based on the wages related to labor. When the wages go away, your tax base goes away, your so many things go away. And if your economy is not based on, if it is based on capital, and you're getting rid of all the workers and replacing them with capital financed things, the all the wealth of the entire country is going to end up in the hands of less than 1% of the population. And that can happen very quickly within half a generation. So 20, 30 years, this we could see that this is the case. In fact, there are models out there showing that the United States could hit 30 to 50% unemployment of basically an unemployable segment of the population within 5 to 10 years. Um, no government can survive that. And I'll tell you, if you do, I'll probably share some of this research on this thing here, algorithmic efficiency versus the human-centric state. what happens, what are the two paths. And so that was in this infographic that I was doing here, that if we don't take
Bill,
any action, yes,
Bill,
yes.
could I just interject? Just add this thought to as you talking along. Could this lead then to us being forced to redefine what is our understanding of wealth?
It,
Because if we're going to get all the wealth as we define it, which is typically, I think, material and then maybe a few precious things, and that's now going to be irreversibly going towards a certain group. As human beings, I think we like to rationalize our reality so that we can survive and remain sane. Don't you think we may then find ourselves going back to thinking in maybe the way people thought 400, 500 years ago, where we start valuing certain things differently so that we can all feel a sense of wealth and wealth, purpose, importance.
there's a
Just kind of put it at the back of your mind as we
yeah.
are
No,
getting
no, this is
as you're explaining.
yeah. This is something that's really important, because um, who's got the power? Who's running the place? Is even if we have a democracy, are the people really running things? If we get down to a point where all the wealth, the financial wealth, is in the hands of just a few, and the idea of a universal basic income, it means that that the wealthy are doling out some percentage of their wealth to finance the lives of the masses. And which to them, to that wealthy class, is now the masses are a useless class. They're of no use to them. And in fact, they may come and say they're a risk to us. If we give them too little, they might come after us and want more, and they might decide to just take everything we have. So maybe the solution is we have to get rid of the masses. And so you see here that as human labor becomes obsolete, and we get this rise of the useless class, and the outcome is what they call a techno-feudal world, whereby the few who own everything literally use a universal basic income to manage the masses. It's almost like how much food are you going to give to the zoo animals? And that is the trajectory that AI is projecting if nobody takes any action to change the model of society. The capitalistic society means that these people are living from the capital, and that's ideal that you're living from the capital if the capital through the robots and the AI that the capital finances are doing all the work. Um, so this was it's very interesting to see how negatively Doha is reflected here. That Doha, they said it's the world leaders trying to solve the 20th century problems in the 21st century. Because the problems, the idea of saying full and meaningful work without describing how. Nobody described how. But if you go and put in every option that you can think of to how to give people meaningful work, some of the suggestions were reducing the weekly work hours down to 30 hours, let's say, or 24 hours. But if you do that, then you're going to get maybe a little startup company here with one person, two people that are going to do what that company was doing and put them all out of business. So if you try to interfere in a market-driven economy, you're just creating a different catastrophe, just moving the problem from one place to the other. So the suggestion, the universal basic income, there was a side event apparently in Doha on that, and they concluded that that was a terrible solution because that was the solution of the wealthy elite figuring out how to manage the
Bill,
masses. Yes,
I think that for the people who were there, based on the way you described them, was an ideal solution because the political mindset is 3 to 5 years max, and some of them might be even shorter. So I would understand that they would be trying to look for quick fixes. And then if you say, for instance, we're going to reduce China's population in 20 years, they say, well, 20 years I won't be in office, but my party might not be in office. So I would kind of concur that for the kind of challenge that we are thinking about, maybe the people assembled in Doha are not incentivized to try and really come up with the kind of solutions that this unique challenge requires.
yes. And that's something that your Notebook LM is fantastic on because it brought out exactly that you're mentioning, that the solution that we need to go for, which is something like universal basic assets that you can see on the right-hand side of this slide, which basically says the world's natural resources and the means of production should be owned by humanity in common. If we reach a point where the robots are extracting all the natural resources and they're building all the products that everybody needs, then it's not right that that be owned by a small share of the population because the rest of the population has no means. If their labor is not of any value, they have no means to increase their living standard or the position. That's controlled by that top 1 or 2%. So I think the people in Doha, they looked at that and they said, if we start discussing that, we're opening here, we're stomping on a bee's nest, and a lot of people are going to get stung. So let's just stick our head in the sand and ignore that factor because it's going to be a disruptive issue to try to answer that. But that's where we get into the difference between politicians and statesmen. What we need people who are able to go and look and say, hey guys, this is what's going to happen. If you stay on this path, this is what's going to happen. If we don't want that to happen, we've got to plan a path to a peaceful transition to a solution that is better for everybody in the world. And that's what they kick the can down the road in Doha. The problem is the road is about to end. And whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, the writing is probably going to be on the wall. We saw Amazon laying off 14,000 people, but in reality, 30,000. Accenture laid off 15,000 a little earlier. And apparently somebody posted something that there's the goal of Amazon that employs something like 1.6 million people is to reduce their workforce by 75%. I don't know over what time, but the goal is the whole purpose of AI from a business perspective is to increase efficiencies. That's the whole purpose. And increasing efficiencies in a big chunk means reducing paid labor.
I
And
think that Amazon case would be very interesting because I believe they would have a cross section of skills. Then they would have some of those who've spent 20 plus years to acquire the knowledge they have. And then they would probably have some who they just got off as apprentices and put them on a truck and this kind of thing. So I think Amazon might actually be a very interesting case study if we could know the time span they're thinking
right,
of. It could give a very good indication of what's capable across sectors.
right.
Not only the white collar, but
Yeah.
the white collar, the blue collar.
But exactly, and where it becomes very interesting here is to take a look. You have to take a look at Amazon and you have to take a look at internationally, what are the other big online retailers or the big distribution companies? Because they're all moving to the lights out warehouse, right? There, so you got all those people that were before working in warehouses, and it doesn't make any difference how good their knowledge and their experience was because you got a robot there that will do that work that they're saying down to pennies per hour because they work 24 by 7. They don't need a vacation. You don't have to pay any kind of additional Social Security and medical care for them. So it's going to be impossible not to go to that model. So the distribution side, that is going to be fully automated. Then we turn around and go over to the production side, to producing goods. There's a factory being built, a car manufacturing factory being built in Georgia, in the United States, right now by Hyundai, I think it is. I think it's Hyundai or Kia, one of those. And right now, Ford and General Motors, it takes 32 to 33 workers to produce 1,000 cars in a year. This new factory that's being built supposedly is going to be able to create 1,000 cars with less than 3 workers. So it's just about this drive for efficiency. That's what's driving the whole thing. And if you've got China saying, hey, we have to be able to automate all this simply because we can't find the workers, we don't have the workers enough. So they're becoming an expert in automation. You can see that if you take a look at their this railway system they're building throughout the country, where they have half the high-speed rail in the whole world right now. But what's really amazing is that they have automated most of the construction of the railroads so that you can watch these huge automated machines that build bridges over valleys or make tunnels through mountains. And China is becoming an expert on automating things. And so when that happens and China does it, how does other countries not do it? One of the things that's going to happen, it's going to affect sub-Saharan Africa big time, is when whatever is being produced, whatever was moved to Africa, because they had low labor costs, is going to go back to where the consumers are, because the robots are going to be cheaper than the low cost labor. So if those countries lose all of their export revenues, and then the bulk of their people who have moved to developed countries and are sending back remittances home, most of them are going to lose their jobs, or you're going to get a huge competition. Who's the better AI manager? There's just going to be a fight for the few jobs at the very top. It's not going to increase the number of workers. It's just going to increase the competition. Look at sports, major league sports. The top guys get signed $50 million deals. It doesn't increase the number of paid athletes. It's just increasing here the competition for the top positions. Education in general. Why do we go and get an education? We go and get an education to give us a advantage over our fellow humans, or at least to make sure we don't have a disadvantage over some of them. We are constantly looking at our neighbors and saying, how do I get higher? Oh, let me get some more education. Let me get some more skills. And then I will increase my market value. So this is where we have to say that whole concept, if we're having a market value competition, if you would, but the number of positions is getting fewer and fewer and fewer, what uh, what do we do with all the people who lose in that competitive race? Because one of the things that automation is eating up fastest is all the entry level jobs. They're the easiest ones to automate. So right now, what we see for the first time, they just did, I saw it this morning, a survey here in the US saying the majority now sees university as no longer being worth it. Okay. And that will probably increase greatly. Why do I want to take on $100,000 in college loan debt if there's no job at the end of it? Or the likelihood that there's no job, or there's only a 50% chance I'm going to get a job that is going to be able to take advantage of that. So, and then keep in mind, we're not only talking about AI related type jobs, we're talking about anything that can be automated. And it was already about 2 years ago, Google had this robot arm that they produced, and they made it so,
Bill,
yeah.
sorry to interject again. Isn't there an angle of saying that this might actually open up other opportunities for production in wealthier countries? Because if instead of somebody investing 100,000 in a student loan, that means they retain that 100,000, which they could then deploy to other productive uses.
Right. But the
So
question
could
is
that
what?
be an option in developed countries?
Well, keep in mind, most of them are doing it in the form of debt. And that they take on the debt and then they assume that they will get that job that will give them the means to pay the debt back.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
okay, that makes sense because it's not like they have the money. And if
Exactly.
they went to a bank, then the bank would probably say, give us collateral, which they don't have.
Right.
So it's not like they have the money with them.
Right. So, and keep in mind
Okay.
here, look at, as I was saying, about 2 years ago, Google came up with a robotic arm, and they put this arm in a workspace where they could see the human workers working, and the robot just watched the humans, and then the arm started to copy what the humans were doing. So the and we see the speed with which robots are going forward. Now, if we go and look, it's going to be slower than AI because AI is just code, and once I've got the code and I got the data, it's immediately replicatable at almost zero cost. A robot, I build a robot. If I want another robot, I got to build another robot. So there's costs related to each and every robot that gets built. So that will go slower, but the capabilities in terms of dexterity, in terms of how they're able to hang in there, the number of errors. We heard in that little piece of audio that I played that I forget how much, 67% fewer mistakes made by humans than by automation than by humans. So uh, the idea here is we need to get the world leaders talking about what if what if the bulk of humanity becomes unemployable simply because that what the human could do for $15, the automation can do now for 15 cents. So we could go and say the human, yeah, you could go out there and say, hey, I'll do it for 14 cents. Can't live on 14 cents, but it's better than nothing, right? So where does that all take us? What we need to have the capacity to explore all the different trajectories that could take place from where we're at. But the one trajectory we probably cannot do, if you go in there and the government says, I'm going to go and we'll have a certain minimum wage, we know that when you increase minimum wage, it actually reduces jobs. Because all of a sudden companies are saying, oh, my production costs more, I have to reduce my headcount to pay those higher wages. And so I tell my workers, you got to work harder. So because you got to compensate for the people we're no longer having. And automation, robots, automation, AI, as I said, we got to be very careful that we don't see this as just it's AI doing all this. No, it's the human drive for efficiency. That's what's doing it all. And the human drive to compete. And how in a market economy do you eliminate competition? Because there's that next guy out there that dropped out of college that says, because I figured out a better way to do a particular job. And so therefore, I'm going to go and I'm going to take the lunch away from this big existing company, this big corporation that is by regulation required to protect their workers. I don't have any workers. I'm a one-man company that's got 100 AI agents doing work for me, or robots. Uh, so how do you compete? And you can't even say I'm going to control the access to data because so much of this is open source. In fact, there is the suspicion that the reason that almost all the AI advancements coming out of China are open source is to literally destroy the AI efforts in the West by making them be able not no longer be able to be profitable because how do you compete against free? And so it's Mo Gaudet, I think the Egyptian that was he used to head up Microsoft, not Microsoft, Google, the Google X program. As he puts it, it's the human nature that is the real problem that we've got. But on the other hand, we talk about the ethics of providing everybody with a good job. How ethical is it to say that people are only allowed to survive or have good well-being if they're good work competitors? Why should your ability to compete in the labor market uh, be the determining factor of the quality of life for you and your family? Is that ethical? That's the reason we have hunger in the world. We have hunger in the world because people are trying to make money off it, and they say, if I destroy enough food, the prices will go up enough, and I'll make a lot of money. So
Isn't
that's
this a bill? Isn't this a sociological issue? It's
yeah.
an issue of how people treat each other and how people are have the, we keep the same old economical form and rather than transmuting it into something that actually works for the masses.
Yeah, absolutely. It's right now the basic philosophy of most governments and leadership is to provide everybody the opportunity to be all you can be. To be
Uh-huh.
all you can be means that maybe others don't have the means, whether it's natural intelligence or it's access to tools or whatever it is, to be what you can be. So does that mean that you should have a right to be better and better off than the others? This is really the debate, but nobody wants to have that debate. Well,
Well,
those of
is
us,
it the idea that just because you're doing something better doesn't mean that it has to be better off? In other words, could there be this more like a caring uh, environment that we develop? Because when we're caring, we care about everybody having at least enough to be able to get to be able to live a decent life.
Mhm.
And this is something that I think that the Peacemakers Challenge can begin to come up with because these kids are incredible geniuses and they don't have the restrictions that we have in thinking something can't be done.
Yeah, but the problem is though when we start to look and say, okay, if we get to the point where and it's very interesting when you go in and you use something like Notebook LM to explore the scenarios and go out there. What I basically did is I said, who all's talking about this? What are all the discussions and the debates about the future? Is it technology that's the issue, or is it human nature that's the issue? To what degree each one? What are the likely trajectories if we do nothing? And if or what are the things that we could do that would influence the trajectory? Um, it's really fascinating to see because there are a number of people who are discussing these. They're not getting into any of the decision making that's driving what's going on our planet. I I want to just because we were going to be talking about the technology and all the stuff with the technology. Let me just close this. Um, it's I think it's interesting to look here at where what's going on with these different discussions. But the bottom line, what I was trying to show here is that AI, with the things that they have added, I showed you the slide deck on something about who owns the robots, for example, was one, and what was the other one here? Who owns the future? I thought this was very interesting. Uh, this the diplomatic consensus in Doha in November, but the corporate reality here of yeah, to make a big deal of ChatGPT Pulse. This is a new feature that was added just a month or so ago, and apparently there's something coming in Apple. Although I have a hard time picturing how because Apple is so far behind in this whole field. But this ChatGPT Pulse, the idea is that AI is no longer waiting for humans to ask it things. It's deciding on its own that certain things should be done, and it's launching projects and initiatives on its own now. And so we're just at the beginning of that. And then it talks about the iron law of the market. So its efficiency is the ultimate arbitrator. One of the things that are very important for politics is this thing called normalcy bias, that the people just are biased to the way things are, and versus the way things might be or could be or will be. And so this gets in, causes the political myopia, and from a business side, you're looking at the automate or die imperative, the way business works right now. Then it came in and showed here the economics of human versus AI labor. Because one of the things that Gemini did is with this nano banana, when you go out and do informatics, it takes the deep research capabilities or the research capabilities in general of the large language model, and it combines them with the presentation skills of the graphics tool, the Nano Banana graphics tool. And then keep in mind, all that you're seeing here now got generated, not one of these slides, all these slides with one mouse click. One mouse click. I did not even go and put a suggestion in or a comment in. I just took it as it was. Say, make me a slideshow over these group of sources. And this was based on 4 sources at the time. And then it came out that it's engineering the humans out of the physical world. Uh, so it's getting China is apparently got a major project to automate all the rice production, all the growing and processing of the rice, the food, among other things. China is totally the lights out manufacturing, going crazy. There's a car manufacturing. There's apparently a hospital, an entire hospital being built that won't have any human workers in it. So when for those that say, well, for care, we need to have humans, well, China is building something. We'll see how that works. And then going on, if we take no action, the erosion of stability between 2025 and 2030 already. Uh, uh, then getting into the gap between the global South and what they're calling Fortress North, that the Europe and North America and South America could end up basically controlling the world. It's interesting here that we don't know they're putting China into the global South, which looking at the way things are evolving, I think here they may end up being the fortress of fortresses. And then the rise of techno-feudalism, hollowed out state because they no longer are able to serve their population, the new serfdom of the masses that live at the will of the top 1%, the useless class, and the idea of exterminism, basically saying here, hey, if the masses are no use to us and they present a potential danger, maybe the best thing is get rid of them. And not necessarily by active extermination, but passive extermination, withholding healthcare, withholding food, and the like. Um, Bedrock from income subsidies to asset ownership. This is the alternative. Instead of subsidizing income, take all the resources of the world and all the production and have it be owned in common by humanity. And the dividend that comes from all of the production gets shared among all humans. And so you get a closed economic loop that works. The architecture of common, the mechanisms of the universal basic assets, how that would work. Keep in mind, one mouse click, one mouse click. Look at, I get blown away by this. I just say, wow, you want to understand this stuff? Yeah, Kurt.
Yeah, well, you blow me away with how easy you work with AI, and I have a tenth of what you got right now because you say with one mouse click, I did this, and I'm thinking, holy shit, I'd love to do that with one mouse clip, and so let's talk sometime, whatever, because I feel so strongly that this peacemaker challenge idea, when it's implemented, because imagine kids at a very young age learning how to calm their mind down and have peace of mind. Because I used to use the roller coaster fingers, breathe in, breathe out, and so on. And that's the kids called it that. Kindergarten kids gave it the name. And it's a way to be able to bring concentration back into the kids and peace into the classroom real quickly without saying, be quiet, and all that kind of stuff. When we get to have people experiencing the peace of mind, then they can get insights into also having more peace come alive in their life in other ways. When we use the mantra, thank you for peace in everything, everything is peace as we breathe out. That then gets people to be much more creative. The attractive force, the law of attraction, and so on, brings more to life, peace. All people from kindergarten kids all the way to university can benefit from this. But at each of those levels, they create a grander form of peace in their environment.
Yeah. The problem is if we end up with 99% of the population that says peace over all everything, and 1% of the population that says exclusivity over everything, you got to figure out how do you get that piece to the top 1%, and have them care about whether the other 99% have peace or have miserable existence.
Well, there's
Um,
where we get to the elite schools like Exeter and so on here in America, and approach them with the idea of having peace be a quest in the school. And if they're looking at peace, they can look at peace in a grander way. Why? Because they're sick of the wars of the world too.
mhm.
Who wouldn't be sick of wars and seeing famine or hearing about it and so on?
But we still have those people who are still destroying the food, or saying, let's not produce the food to keep the prices high, even though we know keeping the prices high means that a certain percentage of the population will not be able to have access to food. So, I'm sort of looking and I'm seeing these things here. Right now, I can see your competition there going and saying, hey, show them these tools. Show them how they can deepen their understanding of what their future might look like and what are the things that will influence what their future may look like, so that they have an opportunity to say, no, we don't want that. But then they got to figure out, and one of the challenges here, and I have another set of these slides that came up with that, is saying, okay, we're at the point now where we've got about 2% of the population really own the majority of all the wealth. So, how do you get them to be willing to share when right now, we sort of say, I can remember when I became an officer at Chase Manhattan, they had a course we had to attend on the future, and part of the discussion was, should Chase stop doing business with everyday people because the world is going to turn back to feudalism? We should focus only on serving the top few percent. And the that was an active discussion. And at the time, there were a lot of papers out there about saying, okay, everybody should only work 20 years in their life. You can work 1/3 time for 60 years, or you can work a double shift and only work for 10 years. But the work needed to be rationed and shared. The problem was that the class of movers and shakers, they're happy to work 80 hours a week for 60 years or for 80 years. They don't want to stop after a point. They live for that competition and that work and for beating their competition. And so this is why all those theories of the 1990s sort of faded away. Um, but the idea is, if you teach young people to say, hey, take the time to understand what's going on. I see this here with some young children that I talk to. I don't want to know about it. No, no, I don't want to know. Just stop doing it. Get rid of it, which isn't going to do anything. Okay, so we've got to get people to not go, no, 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 I don't want to hear about it. We need to get people to be aware of what's happening in their world and how quickly it's happening, and what are their options, and what are the likely outcomes of different paths that might be taken. And it has to do it before it becomes too late. Once we have, that's one of the reasons why, and another one of these articles showed it really well, was this idea of fortress, that the wealthy all withdraw into a fortress situation. They control all the militaries, they control all the means of destruction in the world. Where the total sum of the military capability of the bottom 99% matches only about 1% of the destructive capability of the top 1%, who own all of the military robots and so forth. So many people say, "Oh, it'll never happen." No, it's not. The risks of some of the things that are coming are so great. We can't afford to not look at what could happen and make sure that we have measures in place to avoid the most severe outcomes.
Did you see that, get a chance to look at that film I mentioned to
Not yet,
you?
not yet. I did look
Yeah,
at the summary and it looks interesting. I definitely will look into that.
yeah.
Okay, but comments now. We've been talking here a little bit about one of the studies, going in depth a little bit on one of the studies here of what might happen. But to me, right now, I think the thing that is very exciting is here the ability to do research, to create presentations of the research results that help both you understand the outcomes of the research, but also help you present those outcomes to communicate those outcomes to others. Uh, this to me is the thing that makes this all like mind-boggling. And keep in mind, just imagine this slide deck here. If that was really narrated in a very interesting way, what a fascinating presentation that might be. And that's supposedly what Google is working on, is to be able to go and take something like this and take all the knowledge. Keep in mind, I did not go and tell them, put this on this slide and put that on that slide. I didn't tell them anything. I asked a one page. Okay. I could have done this as a slideshow. I just realized that now. So you just come in and go like that through this slideshow. Okay. So imagine imagine the ability to go and make presentations. And I could have gone in there and said, make me a slideshow like this. I could have put in those instructions targeting an 8-year-old. And I would have gotten a slideshow that would be specific for an 8-year-old.
So I can get a slideshow for this idea of the Peacemakers Challenge and have it geared toward 8-year-olds.
Yeah, if you want here, we can work together here on coming up with the prompt to pull in the research, because you're looking for research on what is going to cause them to be thinking in a certain way at a certain age or a certain time. What is, and that has the aspects of saying what is the thinking, but also the aspect of saying how do we educate in that direction? How do we get them to come to certain realizations and so forth? And so we can help. I can help put together the finding the sources of everybody who's been talking about that and everybody who's going in that type of a direction. I did some stuff with Ashok Patel on a whole bunch of Mayo Clinic stuff that he sent me, and we created some outputs on that as well. So and then to be able to go and say, okay, how do I from that go and create the podcasts, the audio perspective, getting here the young people. How do we make almost like a course or a promotional packet that encourages them to participate in the competition, this competition, and to understand what the competition is really about? Because there's what it looks like on the surface, but what its real intention is. Those are maybe not the same. Okay. Others of you, again, I'm looking at more input. Let me stop the share here.
We have 3 other people on board, and I'd love to
Yes,
be able to hear.
I would.
We did hear a little bit from Mark. I got to catch a little bit of his input, but Raja and Jishan, it would be nice. Let me greet you. Assalamu alaikum, and then you can go on from there.
Uh, Bill,
Yes.
Um, what would I would be keen to know what the output would be if we then now start putting this in the broader perspective of, for instance, the faith tradition. But I think if we look back, say 5,000 years or so of civilization, human beings always come and define some kind of moral compass on what they think is good or bad. So from the findings, it looks kind of inevitable. We could try and delay, but it looks inevitable that there's going to be concentration of resources and power. But how would that go against our deep-seated moral coding? But I think somehow human beings, I mean, they've been Greeks, they've been Romans, there've been all sorts of changes in humanity, but we kind of seem to self-organize around something predictable.
Yeah.
Why would this time be different?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of a gentleman named, I think his name is Lawrence Freeman. Does that name ring a bell to you?
No.
Okay, he's very, very active in the development of sub-Saharan Africa, and he speaks a lot at the UN. I was at a session there that was talking about the Lake Chad basin, which is from pollution and other things is drying up, and is on a path to become a Dead Sea. And so there was a major push a couple of years ago to say, okay, what can be done to reverse this, to stop this? And at the end, they sort of came up and said, we have to push for grassroots. We need to get the grassroots communities everywhere to do something about this. And this gentleman got up and said that he's a student of history. And so he's looked back over the thousands of years, and he said he couldn't find any examples where grassroots have really brought about any significant social change in the world. And he mentioned things like the religion and cultural practices and things like this. Most of those were a small elite somewheres that just made a decision. Okay, we're going to switch. We're going to have a religion. We're going to go to this religion. No, we're going to switch to that religion. And that almost all the changes in the world came from a small group either
Yeah.
dictating it or making the movement that caused these to happen. But it's an
Mm.
interesting discussion because the idea of labor-based economics goes back to when we were all hunters and gatherers and going out, and some people were better at gathering berries or better hunters than others. And so it became a little bit of a specialization where some people were good at making arrows, maybe, and so they stayed and made arrows, and somebody else went out and got the goods. Okay, Kurt.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, but it actually makes sense because when I think about say like Christianity, if
yes,
it wasn't for the Roman emperor, probably it would just be another small religion somewhere.
yes.
And I imagine that it could probably be same could be said to other moral coding. So maybe then, as Rotary, we could begin to try and identify who is going to be sitting in that top 100 and that top 1%, sorry,
Mhm.
and try and see that we can influence them to make decisions that are in the best interest of the 99%.
Well, I
Because
think
there seems
here,
to be a sense of inevitability,
yeah.
but these people can still be influenced
Mhm. Yeah,
if they can be accessed.
there's some people
In,
like
in, in
billionaire Mark Cuban, for example, who has he made a presentation that the masses are going to come after the billionaires with the pitchforks, so that it's in the interest of the billionaires to make sure that we don't get such frustration among the masses. But there, as I say, the other voices are saying here, well, the one thing we can do is we can share our wealth, but if we stop and think, it would cost us less to just exterminate them all. And so the sooner that we can get the discussion going about the need to come up with a plan for a peaceful transition to an alternate economy. And that presentation I was just presenting, it did, because it went and explored, as I mentioned, there was a side session there apparently in Doha about universal basic income. And they concluded that universal basic income that would be funded by taxing the robots or taxing the super wealthy uh, would basically just make a permanent elite class of a fraction of a percent who own everything and who share. So it would be like going back to the feudal system where the kings owned everything, and then they gave out to some of the dukes and the counts some share, and they divided it up. And basically it was, though, because they needed the labor of the masses for the military or for managing the crops and doing the work. But that's going away. So the suggestion is, if we look at Norway and if we look at Alaska, they both have these sovereign funds where they say the benefits of the natural resources of the oil belong to the entire population, and therefore all the share the profits related to those resources should be shared among all the population, and that's what they do. And so that's where I think the model of saying universal basic assets, not an income that comes from the wealthy doling out some share, where their incentive is, what's the minimum I have to give to the poor to keep them from attacking me, versus how do we still advance all the productivity and everything, because everybody benefits. And if you're not an aggressive type and you don't want to be aggressive in advancing productivity, okay, because you're still going to get your share, just like the person who is aggressive, because really, at the end of the day, those wealthy people didn't make the oil resources that are under the ground. They were there for millions of years. And so why should it be owned by just a couple of people? And that's getting into it. But that means that people who currently own a lot would have to give up some of that. But can we find a way that takes place gradually over time, so that they're saying, well, okay, it's not going to affect me. I can live with that. And so they don't fight to defend the privilege that they currently have. That's what needs to be avoided. Anyway,
No, for me, it kind of still boils down to we would be playing around what is their morality, because if I look at what I've seen in very many countries, Uganda inclusive, I saw it in West Africa as well, and probably this was typical in Europe in the 30s and 40s. You will find a class who will say, well, we are not necessarily going to share, but we can still control the masses using instruments like, say, fear and brutality.
mm-hmm.
And this we tend to see with a lot of the dictatorships. I have lived in a number of countries where you have those. So I think, again, it's about how can this 1% be influenced to say, yes, you've got these tools and you can make people's lives miserable. You could probably even get rid of a good number of them, so that the others know that you have that capacity. But how can you say, let's do the right thing, by what thousands of years of civilization have considered to be the right thing, which is trying to build a more equitable solution as a society, sorry.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel maybe because of my lived experience, I have seen the selfishness of a few, and what lengths they can go to, including extermination of hundreds of thousands of people to maintain. And this year, we're not talking about, total economic and productivity. Here, we're talking about just political power, and they eventually lose it, probably through sanctions or something like that. So how about this scenario where sanctions are not going to, stop this 1% from having this kind of power?
Yeah, I think it's very interesting here using the AI to explore what are different ways. One of the things that we had talked about here was, could we use AI to build a diplomatic tool for professional diplomats, for example, at the UN, for them to be able to more effectively explore the problems that the UN is trying to solve and what the options could be for solving those, taking the consideration the positions of their governments, where their governments are thinking. But could we use this to help them develop negotiation strategies for getting the representatives of other countries to go along with their ideas on how to solve the major problems? So to facilitate accelerating the problem-solving capabilities of the UN, because right now, for a lot of different reasons, they do a lot of action and they get very little result. And I think the AI can really be great for that. But one of the big challenges is we have to get the world leadership to face reality, even if it's an uncomfortable reality. We see in climate change right now. Every day we're seeing more and more storms. Look at Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Malaysia in the last week or two. And at the same time, how more and more countries are saying we have to reduce our efforts to suppress climate change. I was just watching in Germany the discussions of the government saying, no, we have to move the dates out for when we're going to worry about climate change. We have a president in the United States here saying, God, climate change is a hoax, not real. All those storms you're facing, it's just weather. So we need to find a way to really get the facts on the table. AI can really be useful, I think, for this, especially the tools, because we can go and say, oh, make a website for me. Oh, now look at that website. How can I make that website more effective to communicate my message? Or how can I get this group of people out there to be more aware of a situation, or more aware of possibilities for dealing with it? So that's why I encourage everyone. I talk about the dangers of AI, but I talk equally about how AI can help us mitigate those dangers, because I don't believe the dangers are AI. AI is magnifying the dangers, but the real danger is human nature. Okay, we've talked about a lot. I showed here Notebook LM, some of the new features. And I think the key thing here is to look and say, how can I use this? What are the use cases? So we've been talking a little bit about some of the use cases there. I'm thinking about getting a little competition out there among the Model UNers that we have that participate in our Model UN program, to see who can come up with the best use cases, examples, the best examples of things that they're doing or would like to do with AI. One, we talked about education. Right now, there's a lot. I have a whole presentation thing here. AI is projecting that education as we know it is going to go away probably within the next 5 to 10 years, and be replaced by a system where certification of what you know is separate. Because right now, a lot of people go to college or university. The main thing they go to college and university for is a piece of paper at the end that says, you have mastered, or you have gained this knowledge, and this university certifies that you now have this knowledge, which of course, generally speaking, doesn't. It only certifies that they've spent a certain amount of time there. And this is why we're seeing the rise of industry certifications from all kinds of companies, from Oracle to Microsoft to Salesforce and so many others, that'll saying, hey, I'll certify your knowledge if you can prove that you've got that knowledge. And so the AI came out and said that private certification programs are going to be what job offers are going to be using to determine who they give jobs to. And knowledge acquisition is going to be a separate thing. So the schools that help you gain knowledge, there's going to be a competition there among them, and there's going to be another competition among these certifying agencies, and some are going to have a higher reputation for the accuracy of their knowledge certifications in a certain field, and that's fine. Let them compete for that, and then let others compete for the knowledge acquisition part. Any thoughts on that? Anybody want to make any comment about that? Okay.
No, that would make sense. I actually had a talk not too long ago about a practical case. There is an institution in Uganda which is founded by somebody who was in Makerere University and got so frustrated that so many of his students were not being employed. And so he went about setting up an institution that does micro certification and engages a lot with industry. And it's actually growing quite fast. And he has when he spoke to me, I think he was talking about an 89% placement ratio of people who come to him. So some people will go through the university program and then will come to him to get additional certification because they've been unemployed for a year or two or something like that.
Yeah.
So I think that makes sense. It's just that when we now look at who are the institutions going to be issuing out that micro certification, those institutions I think might also end up being Notebook and Chart and the rest, because the AI is going to be a lot better at figuring out what kind of unique skills are needed for which niche, so that even it may knock out these institutions that are positioning themselves so-called future ready. The future might already have passed them.
Oh, very true, very true. I just saw here, we've just passed 2.5 hours in our meeting today. I need to end it a little earlier today than we've done, although we normally say it's a 2-hour meeting. But I do need to jump onto something else real quick. I'd like to thank all of you for sticking with us today. And as I say, I am going to try to re-record the beginning of the session here. Okay, bye for now.